Today, Khensur Rinpoche will begin the section of the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, named Training the Mind in the Stages of the Path Shared in Common with Beings of Medium Capacity.
Okay.
So now we're in the section where we begin the medium scope, the stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity. So that section begins I had it tabbed off, page 265, and it begins with the 8 types of suffering. So the heading is Training the Mind in the Stages of the Path Shared in Common with Persons of Medium Capacity. The tambo, the chupa.
Chupa Tanjawa, Muni Roa, Chupa Tanjawa, Muni J. That Chupa Tanjawa, the law of the Jashi, besides Sondigan.
Okay.
Sondigado. Son de what the Tombot shows na de Dundu Bicheto, Lama Tan, de Bilala, Shatsawanes, de Dundu Bichetosa. Ta hotel Karsore, Chibi. Déjà tout ce que depuis dans la terre, on change de marbre, change de depuis on change de rubicheto, on de rubicheto, on lama dans depuis la chasse was, lama dans depuis la chasse was, ou donc de le, disons lama tamba, tout dit Chenmo dans temba, non la chasse los. What things are it?
The dupi la, dukan la.
Dupi la se tan, dukan la se goma ta. So shots are the way you la. And Jijin Jambe and what to sell shots the way euro. Like Dupi las now, shots are the way like Logomarba.
Okay.
Dupi la, Lama shots and the way you are, Dupi la, Sanjay. Jambe on la soba de chasse de boyoro, chasse was what things are. Jesun Tamba, Tuji Chamber de Deba, Nala, chasse law, Jesun Tamba, Tuji Chamber de Deba, and the Sanjay la soba to see Jerva. Tuji Chamber de Deba, Nala, chasse laws, what the Chuba Jubas, what is that Chuba Juba? Chuba Juba, what the Jesun Lama Tamba, Tuji Chamber de Deba, on to Lama Tan, de Villa to the Jew, my beauty. Yunde Juba Yinzang, and the Chuba Jubas, Chuba Juba. The Yunde Juba Yinzang, Chuba Juba. And then Lama to what the Lama Sanji La Suba, and then the Bila and Jesun Jambe on what La Suba to Sulet.
Sanjay Shachatupa.
Tuji Chembudan Demba, Tuji Chembudan Demba Nala, Kubisha Selos, the Chuba Jubijuns, Chuba Jueteza, was Haji Tomba to Otere, what in Jaji, what the Saji, Tomba del Dolagua.
Jetson the Dampati Champo. Then the Jayang. Okay. So we begin here in the training the mind in the stages of the path shared with persons of medium capacity. So we have here the heading, training the mind in the stages of the path shared with persons of medium capacity in bold print. And then it says, I bow with respect to the revered teachers who have great compassion. This particular section falls under the heading called the expression of worship. Under the expression of worship, we find reverence to Lama Tsongkhapa is showing reverence to his teachers, and then within that we see reverence to his desired or the desired deity, and in this case, or the deity. When I use that word "desired," is like the liking, the deity he likes. So here, this would be Manjushri and Lord Shakyamuni Buddha. So this first section deals with the expression of worship. Then the Chupa Jupa Ewa Sum and Tambo.
Chupa Jupa do Chiri,
Tambo.
Tambo Dro.
Then the
Lama Tamba, Tuji Chemata Debanala, Shase Los, the Chupa Juba is
the
Chupa Juba, Jambe Anda, Sanjelos over the Sule, Yente Jundota, Yente Karisana, and the Sule Chambi, and the Sea, and the Nebi, and the Yorota, Tuji Chemata Debas, Sea, and the Savat and the woman. Tuji Jizun Lama Tamba. That can't Jizun Jambe, Jizun Jambe, Jizun Lama Tamba, Tuji Chembudan Demba Nala, Kubisha Selos, what is a marba?
Dene the Jayan Sheba, the Sache Ni, the Yanja Suranong, then Sache Tambo, the Somure, the Datayan. Jayan Sheba
what is Sache Ni,
then Sache Tambo, Sache Somure.
Tambo ne Dodun Ruby Chedosa Tiba Chimbi Regent Debi Danda Sanji Kubo de Marbe Sanji Kubo Ruby Chedo Sanji Kubo Ruby Chedo and Kiji Jimata Debe Lama Tabana Shase was Shase was Marbe Lama Dan Debi Hala Shase one Jizun Lama Tamba, She Susa, Jizun Lama Nala, Jizun Lama Tamba, Tuji Chembudan Demba Nala, Nala Kubisha Selos, with the Chuba Jubijon Rendo.
Chuba Jubijon.
Chuba Juba, Yende Jubijon, Chuba Jubijon, or the Tubijon, Chuba Jubas and the Yende Juba, Chuba Juba, Chuba Jubas. Chuba Juba ina, and the Guba Karias and the Chuba Juba ina, so no Chibasa and the Grace, so no. So no Chibasaba ina, so no Gunami till Doyungre, doing a member channel race, and so no there me somebody, and then so no the Abuba ina, and then me Susu Deba Karioba ina, then do Yungres, do Jacher Yobale, and Jacher Yobale, Sami. Sono Nami Ditere, Dunga Tanchi say, Sono Demi me, Samba Najan Rose, what the Jacher River, passing Chuja to Katule, Jacher River, Lord John Rota. Chuba Jogi now what the Sono Chibasagre, Sono Nami Dele, the Wayungre, Dunga Meba Chagre, and the Sono Demi me, Samba Susin Debanajan Rungres, Chuba Jububa Teres, Chuba Jubaina. Sono Sacre, Sono Nami del Dawayungre, Dunganganagre, Sosin the Buck and Rungres, teach it race, Tanan to Sugan.
Okay, then it is Sobudu. Then a giant shape of Sache Tambo, the Dupa, Ewasum?
Ewasum ro, Ewasum.
Okay.
Choba Juba the Saji Sum Digdua. Choba Juba the Saji Sum Dine.
Chupa Chupa, the Tambo, Yomarebe. Sache Sum, then Tambo, Chupa Chupa. We're just figuring the outline out. And just to...
Tumoy Larilla, Choba Jet Sanjawa dance, Choba Jet Sanjawa Tambarendua.
Okay.
Ngoye the Larichim Sajimonel. What the Tumo use Choba Jet Sanjawa, what the Sajidam Jaji with the Sajidam Barendua. They non Chuju dan and Saji Kasung.
Okay. Okay. So Jayan Sheba states that in this section there are two categories. First, the desired object of the path. So when we look at the great scope, for instance, the desired object of the path would be to attain complete Buddhahood. So here Lama Tsongkhapa begins under this section, there are three categories, and the first category begins with this expression of worship. And then when we look at it from the major headings, we said that the first one is the desired object of the path, or one's aim or desire. And then the second major heading that we'll get to after is the actual practice, the actual meditations on suffering, etc. But this particular category is the aim or desire. So there are three categories within that first category, and the first one is the expression of worship. So why do we have this expression of worship in the beginning? The reason is to accumulate merit. Because it is necessary to accumulate merit if one wishes to eradicate suffering. And it's stated in commentary, I don't know the exact name, on the Perfection of Wisdom teachings, that with the great merit, one is able to get rid of all sufferings, achieve all happiness, and achieve whatever one desires. So this is the reason why it's necessary to accumulate merit, to get rid of suffering, to achieve happiness, to be able to acquire whatever you desire. So it's for this reason that Lama Tsongkhapa puts this at the beginning, this expression of worship, and that's to accumulate merit. When we look at this expression of worship, we can find one is looking at the various excellent qualities of one's desired deity that one is paying homage to. Excuse me. So we see the excellent qualities of compassion. Here we have it presented, teachers who have great compassion. So we find those excellent qualities of compassion, the excellent qualities of knowing reality and diversity, and so forth. This is the type of being that one is paying homage to, and in this case, we can implicitly understand that it is Manjushri and Buddha Shakyamuni that Lama Tsongkhapa is emphasizing here. Digsun. This sum yanger suna.
Geshe is now the Timage tourism nebi, Papilandre, Papilan. Timage tourism nebi, Paju Chamber, Geshe Seni, Krutaji Shavaji Sembi, Shansan Papi Motu, Lanshi Seni. And
knowledge of paths.
And then Chutaji Mosu to be taught to be Shanachin Seni Marbe. What the chambers was what the Motu, what the chambers on Shavajovereta, Geshe. Timage tourism nebi, Papi Chamber down, and the Shansan Papi Lang, and the Taji Chamber, what the Sunda Chubajo Marbe. What the Chuba Judil, Tajuba Karajin, Go Karas, chaba jogi na sono sa kare sono nami tele dewa yung kareungen ga na kare me sono de me sama kan kare ten na do su kan da ban da mar ba jujun lama ta ba tuji shamba de man sha se ba yin za an de sono sa na kare sono sa ba yin so za an sama sono nami dewa yung kareungen ga na kare so su de ba kare ba yin ru
lesser
what is the point of his summer? So no nami deter, don't touch say, so not the me someone passing what the children got to judge you down
So the expression of worship, or sometimes expression of homage, is done for the purpose of accumulating merit. Because by accumulating merit, one is able to eradicate suffering, one is able to achieve happiness, one is able to also achieve whatever one desires or whatever one aims for. So this is the reason. And in the beginning of the Abhisama Alamkara, we find an expression of worship to the three knowledges, the knowledges of the Arya paths. So that first category, I think it's of varieties, knowledge of varieties, we can look that up. And then the knowledge of paths. So knowledge of paths is referring to the great vehicles, superior paths, and then the knowledge of all phenomena to omniscience. So we find this expression of worship in the beginning of the Abhisama Alamkara to these three knowledges. I don't have my Abhisama Alamkara with me, so unfortunately I can't look it up at break, but I'll find out. So in the Umajupa, the entrance to the middle way by Chandrakirti, we find in the expression of worship expression to great compassion. And so all of these are very similar.
Chimbi long nyas lega so debi de sanji ko bon to mar ba tendu bi che to ne lama tamba tuji chemba tamba de manala sha che wares.
So under this section, which is the meaning of one's aims or desires, or maybe it was Dudun, Dudun Rinpoche. Like. Okay, yeah. So
like Maya,
one's desires.
Yeah.
So one's aims, one's desires. So the aims of the Mahayanist are to achieve the state of complete Buddhahood. So here we find at the beginning section, under that major heading of one's aims or goals, the expression of worship, and it is presented here, and I bow with respect to the revered teachers who have great compassion.
Chibi lantan ringal jogures. Chibi lantan ringal manju na saji ko tutu marota. Drinta chibi lanle jogobate, what the saji ni bate ten dos. Tate what the umadre. The Lama Tamba Tuji Shambata Tabanala Shazelos, Nibat Watere, Teatre, Chua Jesu Tembatan, Shene, Nanuton, Tuisante. Jiten de Lulu ne Lune Shimi, Dundu Tenya Jete, ne John Tomoatan, Kanaki, Lending Yapi Kune, Debon Gawa, Rubalam Bebe, Dundu Copon, two merchants, then the Tazanji, Chuba. Dundu Kumutubata, Dundu Kumutubaina, Chibi Chungu, Chungu de Dundu Kumonte. Chibi Chungu, Dundu Tubaina, Tazanjin Digo Maris, Nakua Kudunga Tabaco, and then Taji Chamba and Sanji Ures, what the Chibi Lanta, Dingalan Ures on the Inside. Then my day that a Chivajas would end that day that a Chivaja would Tamal what the Lusu Achi Chiva to Tamachinsaro, day that a Chivajas would temper dance. She would Shene, Nanu don't you choose on this, Chivajas would end, and the Shene, Kanaki. Nabil and Momosaba Ina, Dambil Momosaba Ina, and the Nandul Tongres, Tusante, Jiden de Lulunes, Jiden de Lulunes on du, and Cindy Sanlutan, Seshimi Danigana, Seshimi Dal Santa Gugres, Sindel Santana, Chure Major, Sindel Santa Valu. Lune and Seshima and Latame, there's not to ya, Tabatuya, Sanji Guntuya, what the Nusan Tangures, they that a Chua Jesutene, Tamba Tam, Shine and Luton, you choose on this, Dibasabaina and Niwala Subangasuntuage, Nansu Santan, what is Santane, Jiden de Lulune, Sindil Santa de. Sanlu Lune, did Java Shema Penchiki, and then you down to ya, Tabatuya, Sanji Kupuntuya, what the new Santan would is, Dundu Dene Jetes, Dundu Dene Jete, Ne John to Tumoatans, that John to la John to Tumoatan, Tumomaiba Roda, John to Tumoata. Chibi Chung the Jandu Tomo Yungre and Dean the Tomo Jandu Yungre and the Chibi Jandu. Was the Chibi Shaju Sabi Jula, Chungutan, Tomo Jandu Yugre, Dean the Tomo Jandu, what the Yugro, Jandu Tomo Dansa. Chibi Chung to the was Nasu doing Gishitan and Johnson Ruoro. Then Naji in the Shaju Samba. Nasu to Ganjitan Joseph Road.
Okay.
The Chungo Tomoicho Marbe. And the Jebun Dingy, Quid Ganjitane, Conjuson Joseph Road. Shaju Sambatu, Quid Ganjitane, Conjuson Joseph Road, did the Tomo in Yero. Did the Tomo Rose, John to Tomo dance, Karnaki Lende, Gabi Lende, the Nabi Lende, Nasu Tamal Momachinsaro. Kadang lending happy gune deba pon kanang lending happy gune deba pon deba mago ju papon goadrubala bebe and goadrubal kali jaba ina ne then you go to res then you go to my jang then the tatanji chuba manzin bas what the Jibun did what the Dendru Kubutubasan Chubanzing Matters, Dendru Kubutan Tubatanji Chubanzing Jibu Chungre, the Mother Chungo. Could the Watan Talarani to the Nishiba, Jibutan Tamashis, Jibu Chungo to get Seshima Latami, there's also two Nanabe, Salu the Chung Salu. Ding was Salu doesn't matter, Tele and Chai Salu orders. Then the Tatanji. Chuba Manzin Jis, Jebu Chungutan, Tumu Yu, Samba de Jebatans, Jebutan Chungu Samba de what Jebatan, Dindan Tumu, Koatada La, Shamba Lubin, Dindan Tumu Yu, Koatada La Shamba Lubi, Samba Jene, Telatene, Shanchu the Saint Jedesa, and Tibachimilan Lojang Kures, Jebu Chimba TV, Jibunding Samba, Ron Goodus, Kaza the Jibichibul Tribala, Jibunding and Jibinding Samba the Lunoche Waters, Ding Samba, Nanju Samba, Kuchibi Lanle, Chibi Land, Jibichibi Land, Shanchu Samba Land Tribaina, Tambo the Jibunding, Nanju Samba to the Love Waters. The Malaba Chibich Shaju Sambi Long to Major da. Did not Tumua Coatada La Shambalubi, Samba Jene, Tela Tene, Shanchu to Saint Jedesa. What the Tatane what Tibachimi Sanji Madre Sanji. Sanji what Sanji Wures, Sanji Jul Jebala, did not Tungu Long Hot Rure, Chungu Tungu Long Hot Rures, the Sul Majamba, and the Shanchu to Sanji to Mares, what the shading is a Maruka.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the Nipa, the Mingare?
Nipa means what is it?
The Yichi Mavalas. You mean?
Nipa the Janji Sajil meet the Tagudu. Nipa Ku Tangaba, Bombi, Ku Tangaba Bombi, Chending Juri Banasa. Nipa the Ku Tangaba Bombi, Sansara. Sansara Tatangaba Bombi, and Chibichimila, Dinglala, Lujange Wures, Juriba Tangus, only but in the Mare, Theatre Chava just would temper Odenma, the Tangus on there. Theatre Chava just would temper down. Shene, Nandu choose this, what the Kuitang Ababombi. Chibi Lantan, Kuitas in the Sansara Mare, Sansara, Yamutan, Sansara Pombi, Tabatubala, the Tubala, and then Chibi Lantan, Digla Lujan Wundos, Lujan Gubaten, those are taught in the ma, Nibati.
Less so.
Chundila, Judy was Chindi, Chibi Lanta, Diglan, Tosona, and Sanjituro. Chindingla, Julmajina, Sanjitumaro. What the song is it? Then Mawaniba to get the those on that.
So here, this next section, there's an enormous amount of information, so I'm going to do the best I can. This next section, which is section number 2 in Jayan Sheba's outline, shows the importance of not being satisfied with just practicing one small or medium scope vehicle. One should be aiming for or aspiring to the great vehicle or the pathways for beings of great capacity. So when we look at how all these capacities work, it's necessary to have the pathways for beings of small capacity in order for the pathways for beings of medium capacity to occur. And in order for the pathways for beings of great capacity to occur, it's necessary to have the pathways for beings of medium capacity as their basis. So we find this interdependence. This point here is that it's necessary to practice all of the pathways if one wishes to abandon cyclic existence. And then ultimately, the aim should be to achieve complete Buddhahood. And when it only becomes Dharma if it is focused on the future lives. So it doesn't become Dharma until that point. If it is focused on the things of this life, then it isn't Dharma. It's necessary to be focused on those 3 goals in future lives: the goals of a higher realm rebirth, the goal of complete liberation or nirvana, and then the goal of Buddhahood. So this is the point of Dharma. This is the reason for practicing these things. So in the great treatise, this section begins where it says, "Be mindful of death and reflect on how you will fall into a miserable realm after you die. Turn your mind away from this world and diligently seek a happy future rebirth. If you strive to reject sin and to cultivate virtue through the standard practice of going for refuge, and through reflection upon virtuous and non-virtuous karma and the certainty of their results, you will achieve a happy rebirth. However, do not be satisfied with this alone. After you have developed the attitude that is shared with persons of small capacity, develop the attitude that is shared with persons of medium capacity, namely disgust with all of cyclic existence. On this basis, you may aspire to become a person of great capacity by developing the spirit of supreme enlightenment. If we go through this, when we get to, if you strive to reject sin, to cultivate virtue through the standard practice of going for refuge and through reflection upon virtuous and non-virtuous karma. So here, when we look at all of these pathways or capacities, we have this word shared in common with. Because we have, even with refuge, common refuge, and then uncommon refuge. If we look at, for instance, the refuge of a person of small capacity, we would see that they would be going for refuge because of a fear of the lower realms of cyclic existence. So this would be the purpose of their refuge. But this isn't something that they share alone. A medium scope practitioner, as well as a bodhisattva practitioner or a great scope practitioner, would go for refuge for this reason as well. So this is why it is called shared in common. So if one desires to achieve, here the last sentence, developing the spirit of supreme enlightenment, this is referring to bodhicitta. If one wishes to achieve bodhicitta, it's necessary to have renunciation as its basis, a desire to definitely emerge. Here it says, namely, disgust with all cyclic existence. That's referring to renunciation. So without that present, it's not possible for one to achieve the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And that mind that aspires to enlightenment is the entrance into the Mahayana. It's the door into the Mahayana. We need these capacities as a basis. So then it says reflection upon virtuous and non-virtuous karma. So we went over, and the certainty of their results. We went over that quite a bit, the black and white karma, and the results of virtuous karma, and the results of non-virtuous karma. Then it says, if you do these things, then you will achieve a happy rebirth. So here this is speaking of the future life, rebirth in the higher realms of cyclic existence, the aim of a small scope practitioner. However, do not be satisfied with this alone. After you have developed the attitude that is shared with persons of small capacity, develop the attitude that is shared with persons of medium capacity. So here, showing how the small capacity teachings serve as this basis. They are in common. The medium scope practitioner has these practices and are common to him or her as well, are necessary for him or her as well, are shared with both. So the medium scope practitioner shares these practices with the small scope practitioner. So it's stating that do not be satisfied with this achievement of a higher realm rebirth alone. Strive to get renunciation. So this serves as the basis for this renunciation. The desire to emerge from cyclic existence must be there to then wish to emerge, the desire to emerge from the lower realms of cyclic existence must be present in order to then have a desire to emerge from all realms of cyclic existence. So you see how each of these serves as a basis for one another. The small scope practitioner having this desire to be free from the lower realms. But the medium scope practitioner having that desire as well, but also having a desire to be free from the higher realms as well, disgusting all of cyclic existence. So on this basis, you may aspire to become a person of great capacity by developing the spirit of supreme enlightenment. Again, bodhicitta, the door or entrance into the Mahayana. So thinking or the training of thoughts, the thinking of these various capacities are necessary in order to the thinking of the earlier capacities when we're looking at the three capacities. So the way of thinking of the small capacity and the way of thinking of the medium capacity are indispensable in order to achieve the way of thinking of a person of great capacity. So I think I have everything. Just give me one moment to look at my notes here. And again, going back to virtuous and non-virtuous karma giving rise to happy things or things that make you happy, and non-virtuous karma giving rise to negative things, to bad things. When one's looking at happiness, and this ties it together, one's aim of happiness should be, if it is dharma, at least directed minimally at one's future life. And then next level, liberation, and then complete Buddhahood. Digson.
Yes, man.
Ngay Sampa.
What is the need to move? Koa Tadala Shembalu, somebody, and then Telatene, and the Shachu to the Saint Jewures, Saint Jete, Chibuchimbo Tibe, and the Jibundingi. Chimbu Tibe, Jibundingi, Samba John Goodis, Chibu to Saint Jules Jebala, and Jibunding Samba Jean Goodis, and I know Samba to Jean Good, Jean Good, Jusen Carresana, the Tar Lami, Komoto Jansa, Hadame, Komoto Jan, Duji Dungele, Mande Base, Dungaji Dunga, Ju Dunga, Chaban Duji Dungel Mande Bares, Chebu Chung, Lan Latene. Ne dendu ko bonto ba ina dendu ko bonte dungen ju dungen chaban duje dungen le mande pares duje le mande pe tala raji ji dowan zemba chaban duje dungen tala raji ji dowan zemba de ne shinji lores denju mata judu na shinji lo judu yo marbe shinji lo yembe ya taba na dowa mela sa kol Call Kusa Shijita Yan Taman Doyo Maris Hayan Nandu Naba Tonyu Tangabirosa Chaban Duji Dunga Toba Ina Kukande Kora Jijone Yanja Nazun Masa Uris what is on Tangures on the Zare Shijilo Yembe Naya Tabana Doa Mela Hayan Nandu Naba Nebra Tonyu Tangabirosa Chaban Duji Dunga Toba Ina Yaja Magi Lake and Debijimene Yang as Mule Jimures Nebishiro Buna Tamata Yansa Tonwa Yankar Nangaso Naso Jintesa Buna Yansa Jikan Masaro Jigduna Maza Contes Nasuja de Rabores Chaban Duji ne jibu chungu nangla tene denru tenzang tuba ina wate lu tenkiya yu ma res wate soza maja yang di magi rebi jimi ne nesong tong yung res yangsa jibu chikang nama sadru jiga duna tezi takang nesu jade rabu res wako tenma rukro wate rabu res wate isa example pena tamata yangsa tongwa ga yangka na Nanso Jinte sa Tendabresa, what the Kale Jujan?
The Denji Juju, the Garshan and Chiran Lasso.
Shinjilu, Shinjilu, Dawala Dungan Shijilu, Mutabala Taba Shijilu, what they are Marbe, what the Dukan the Washinjilu, Red Marbe.
Ale, the Didar.
What is the lady inside? Shinjulu Yembe Yan Tabana, Doa Mela Layan, Nandu Nabar Tonyu, Tangabishiro, Panatamata, Yansa Tonwa, Yankana, Naso Jintesa, Saraji to the Nasuja, the Montu Sana.
Lasso, this Sabudu, this Shinji look, the Kabir.
That Shinjulu, what is a take on or the con. Shinjules, Dendru yang dan yang wong de sa, dendru yang dan yang wong de, dawa mambu je ne, shene nga sung, dunga ne, yunri mezi na su tong sa. Ta shunju kuwa de, te ne su de shunju lu sung dos. Shunju kuwa de, dendru yang dan yang wong de, dendru la dan me tenzang, mabu tuba ina yang na yang to, me tenzang dan la tenzang tuba ina yang, ane to dawa mambu jeba ina mei dawa dan lai dawa mambu pejo jeba ina je ne shene nga sung du nga ne yunri mezi na su tong yang cha tene dibi jibi ne nga sung ma sa du res dama de dawa de ren duwa da she dan zo de shunju de ren do shunju wo di jeba ka le ji na jeba.
So next we have, consequently, you must train in the attitude of a person of medium capacity. Why? Because even were you to reach the level of a deity or human, you would be mistaken if you believe this to be pleasurable by nature, since you would still not have escaped the suffering of conditionality. Therefore, in reality, you have no happiness whatsoever. Your life would still come to a bad end, for you would surely fall into a miserable realm. A human or divine lifetime is like resting on a precipice just before falling into the abyss. And then we have a quote from Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life.
What that animal who
It's Rinpoche. After repeatedly coming to happy rebirths and experiencing much joy there, you die and fall into the protracted and unbearable suffering of the miserable realms. So here, when we're looking at the various types of suffering, it's saying that even if you reach the higher realms of cyclic existence, the aim of a small scope practitioner, if you achieve birth as a human or as a god, you still have the various types of suffering. As humans, we have the suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, the pervasive compounded suffering. So here that's called the suffering of conditionality. So it's saying, were you to reach the level of deity or human, you would be mistaken if you believe this to be pleasurable by nature, since you would still not have escaped the suffering of conditionality. Therefore, in reality. So if we look at the reality or the real nature of things, we find in an expanded way, we need to investigate the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, or the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths. These are the true realities of various things. So the suffering of conditionality means that we will over and over again be forced into a rebirth, and because we've accumulated many negativities, we will again in the future, because of this pervasive compounded suffering, have to experience the suffering of the lower realms of cyclic existence again, even if we're abiding in a higher realm. So here it's saying that abiding in a higher realm of a deity or a human is like just standing as on the edge of a cliff. And that edge means like right before you're going to fall in. So you're really just on the complete edge. Because in the future, because of the suffering of conditionality, because of pervasive compounded suffering, we will necessarily fall to the lower realms of cyclic existence. So we're here just kind of in a holding place or a resting place while we wait to eventually fall again to the lower realms. So it's almost like we're taking a break on a cliff. So literally taking a break on a cliff. It says, for you surely fall into a miserable realm. Falling to the lower realms of cyclic existence is a result of non-virtue. And we have non-virtue. So we will necessarily, in the future, have these sufferings again. And we have to be diligent and understand that by nature these things are not pleasurable. So then we investigate the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths.
다 쇼죠 롱도 나와도 로틴 잡아도 로만을 팀바. 로틴 세야 되시 인치를 가지고.
공경 매비치 대 슈주 Jason. So in the engaging in the bodhisattva deeds, it says after repeatedly coming to happy rebirths and experiencing much joy there. So repeatedly, this is pervasive, compounded suffering. That word repeatedly. We're repeatedly coming to happy rebirths. So being born as a human, being born as a god, and experiencing joy there. You die and fall in the protracted and unbearable suffering of the miserable realm. So then your propelling karma, because we have non-virtue, eventually throws us into the experience of that non-virtue creates, and that's unhappiness. So it says an unbearable suffering of the miserable realms. This idea of falling is similar to what Lama Tsongkhapa states here about falling, standing on a precipice just before one falls in. Dixon. Cindy Gomen.
Alla rube center como rube center como de roa center como de nalenta keba dinero ginye
lesa
paden da wata ba zu de kin roa center como romala temba le jang kanji ku kulta to joai kanji kulta to joai na to shunes le da nyomo mo ko kole ko ba ina ku na to shune nga jibi yue samba yue la dang lai ten dang mei ten la dang mei de wa yue ro wa de wa yue samba ji sen san da ku wa res de wa zang la de sen ba sa la dang mei de le de nyo mo mo ge la dang mei ten san ten la de wa de yue ro de le ne de wa yue nya ba san lu ku wa res re de tene Napa Ome Rinji Jatato Duanya Damanya Kundu Chamba Juros Tenu what Tene Yomasco Ledon Yomogi Young as one Dondore Young Dundul Chugre Neba Yomas Tenengabara Ome Rinji Jatato Duanya Danza Nyanson du Tabmedan Latan Manyabangason what the little general could do is at the Marva. Chambajurus, call Chandris, young Denrulce, young Nandrulce, what the call could do is, she is your mothers, what in Dabudua.
So next we have a quote from Chenrezig Groman's letter to a student. You who whirl constantly in cyclic existence, yet who enter a happy realm, mistaking mere calm for happiness, will certainly wander helplessly through hundreds of like and unlike realms. So here, speaking of a being who's in a higher realm of cyclic existence, specifically a human being. So humans, it states here, mistake this kind of break that one is taking for happiness. Yet who enter a happy realm, mistaking mere calm for happiness, will certainly wander helplessly. So helplessly, this word is used because we are under the control, one is under the control of his or her karma and afflictions. There's no independence there. So one is forced by one's karma and afflictions into hundreds of like and unlike realms. So like realms would be the higher realms, because we're currently in higher realm, and then unlike realms, meaning the lower realms of cyclic existence. So we're constantly circling through all of these realms of the hell, hungry, ghost, animal, human, God, over and over again, and we're helplessly circling because we're forced by our karma and afflictions into this process called cyclic existence. You who whirl constantly over and over again, going through this circle of rebirth, of birth, this circle of birth. So Chandra Groman was a lay person, and then Kondan Dawa Drapa Dasi the Tsinigom.
Chandra Kumo did Nalentra Pion, Latin Kuganye, and the Dul Moras Kayamara Shintakolo. and then Langu Gaji the pay Jirota. Pay on the Tanzania Kumana, and the Kukani is also the Sevish of taking Dul Karina, Jambi and Kodijaba in the Chisha. And then pay on the Tin Chabano, then Shukam Kukani later. What they get the name, Tin Dul Jambi and Kojago in the Shiana, Kontishun pay waters. And Nalental pay the Nalental, Panan the order of the Kuni Tsun, and then what the Motsun, and Panan the order of Kul, the Kauchimar, Panan the order of Tarisu that dinner, Sonny answered a Kumchila yours. Chenrezig then a coffee, Sherlock had the Chenrezig was what the Tarintu, Yansoni. Could come and do Chenrezig could the Tentacle lower, but the children land the judges, and the pattern of the face waters, and then what the Chur Papa and Yeri about the knowledge of Larouch is some will do the one, and Chenrezig what the knowledge could knowledge share Latin water, children knowledge share Latin on my bus, what then some will do she had what Tentacle.
Then Senator Gomen, the Nalanda, the Peson, the Con, the Shinto Corlo, lesson.
Shinto Corlo, Leon, the Taco, Peso Chicken Tabo Movie, Cookinero, what the good Cebu, and Jambe and Kodija, the Jolutele, Shun Pen waters.
Con Jambe and Go and Con Jalo.
Could Helja, and the Cotijolu then, and Sabasu and Jambe and the Euro. So
Chandra Groman was a layperson who arrived at Nalanda University in a chariot with the representation of Manjushri. Rinpoche said, I was asking questions about the story, and he said you can look it up in the story of Chandra Groman. But the part of the story which Rinpoche told is that Chandra Groman was a lay person who had many debates with Chandrakirti. And Chandrakirti was having a very difficult time debating with Chandra Groman and couldn't figure out why. And Chandra Groman apparently had a very close relationship, like teacher-student relationship with Chenrezig, and relied upon Chenrezig as his wisdom deity. So every day there would be questions posed by Chandrakirti, and a debate would take place. And then the following day, Chandra Groman would have excellent answers and responses and so forth to give to all of Chandrakirti's questions, and he was having a great amount of difficulty. So one night Chandrakirti went to Chandra Groman's room, and he looked inside and he saw that Chenrezig was actually instructing him on how to respond in the debate and helping him to answer these questions. So then Chandrakirti invoked the deity Chenrezig and asked, will you please help me too? Can you help me to give answers to these questions? You are the Buddha of compassion, so please help me as well. And Chenrezig said to him that you don't rely on me as a wisdom deity, whereas Chandra Groman does, so that connection's not there for us where it is with him. So therefore, I can't help you. I can only help those I'm connected with in this way. So this is the story of Chandra Groman and Chandrakirti's debates. So Chandra Groman was a middle way autonomist.
So
Chandrakirti is a middle way consequence school. Holds the middle way consequence school tenets, and as a note, that's a higher tenet than the autonomy school. But he was having difficulty with the debate with Chandra Groman because of the helper that Chandra Groman had. Rinpoche, Jutsu Jiedang. We'll take a short break and get right back.
Oh, yeah. What about the Niba? 사진이 보거든 자지 보거든게 대대가 도스다 그타 내가 보유 진리가라 조리바스 어때다 제스 테네스 어때 네 전다 코멜론 좀을 받으래 대 사진이 받으래 다 사진 송바되는만 디시를 들으라야 내한도 던다와 어떤만 송바되는도 디시를 들으라야 내한도 던다와 신도 좋아 샤고데스 되는마 네 들을 하다메 레던 요모 안그시 하다메 대선들에 내한도 던다와 안내juk 상바야 공구레스 어때 된거 도스다 사지 송바 미들 어때 자지베 어때 성도 그 변수라 셴루 마고나스 그 변수라 셴루 마고나 그 변수라 나바주 나주 상바도 마고나 콜 저거 말 타바투 말레스 어때 또 공구레스 어때 셔서 어때 마트 된거 도스다 그 변수라 셴루 마고나 마드리스 그 변수라 셴루 마고나 콜 저거 말에 콜 몸비 타바투 말레스 마드 공리바네스 어때 그 변수라 셴루 상바다 나주 상바다 어때서 공구레스 공리바스 사지도 어때 된거 도스 사지도 어때 셔 덴드라이언스 어송바드는 말에 디시 덴드라이언 난도 던다와 신도 좋아하고 있듯 주세 디시 네 덴드라이언 나송 던다와 네 코알은 상바데 샤고레스 좋아하고 있듯 제자발레 케바나라 토레장 녀와 당송 지진 조로사 네 지자바 아얀데와 지자바 거서 네 케바솔레 케바나라 네 토레장에 소마제 토레장 녀와 단다와 지송 셴조스 녀와 단다와 네 덴두 네 코아들 댄존들레야 네 케바조가 드시고스 지지 조로 나바군도 되나라 지시 지바 네 마지군사 마지군 제단사 나바 케바조와데 나바군도 와데 타비유데네 레도 녀모봉 그 덴두도 냐도 쳐보매봐 참말해야 되네 신한테 쳐고 알아서 어디 매지게 요 말레스 매지바 공부레스 케바줄라 녀와당 송 지진 조로 나바군데 되나라 지시 지바 매지군사 지바 매지군 공부레스다 케바 어느 상주생바도 수에서 왜저러다 매지군 셰단사 어디 가래지 루나 어디 대지루나 저봐
In Shanchu Semba, the Garishin Rinpoche, the Shira Gombo.
다 디셔서도 디셔 던르양 안도 던다와사 디셔 어느 안도들 되는 동에 여바다와도 손 딸시서로다 주세 디셔 던르라야 안도 던다와 동에 주 동에 차반 주지 동에 와도 여들어다 디셔 던르라야 안도 던다와 신도 좋아하고 있어 네 덴둘라야 되네 내가 삼바 공고레스 콩 수수건도스나 제 아얀데 제자발레 케바나라 토레장스 케바나라 계속 맞에 토레 하다메 대장장 녀와도 총바 네 지지 조로사 케바졸 때네 토레 하다메 대장장 녀와던다와 시고 알아서 그 때문에 말고 양시 양님은 동양나 손제 그러저는 어때 때문에 봐야 소사 개발서 어디 시고 알아서 든든서 녀와던다와 네 녀와 다총 제제주로 나바군도 되나라 지시 지바 매제군 개발서 어디 든든 레도 녀모 먹지 드리 되는 돌등에 nganu sabo machi ko kombres she dan what college juda nyu juda samara.
Okay, so that was number 2 we just went through in Jayan Sheba's outline of into the section of aims or desires. First we have the expression of worship, and then we have the point that one should ultimately aspire to become a person of great capacity by way of these other capacities, not to be satisfied with the earlier shared capacities. And then number 3 begins here. Number 3 shows that one should have the same level of disgust with the higher realms of cyclic existence that he or she has of the lower realms of cyclic existence. So that's the point that is made here. It says, consequently, you have to become as thoroughly disenchanted with the happy realms as you were with the miserable realms. As Aryadeva's 400 verses says, high states frighten the wise as much as hell. Rare is the state of existence that does not terrify them. So here it's stating that those scholars who understand that even the good things of this life are in existence, within cyclic existence, are brought about by karma and the afflictions. Here, those who are wise, those who are scholars, recognize this fact and wish to be free from even the higher realms of cyclic existence. Those higher realms frighten them. So here, previously the small scope frightened by the lower realms of cyclic existence. Here, this practitioner of the medium scope has that same kind of mindset or fear of the higher realms of cyclic existence, because we find within those realms we have the suffering of birth, aging, sickness. The suffering of the suffering of change, and the pervasive compounded suffering that one has to experience. So the wise fear these higher states as well, and then that's it. I'm really sure. Good things were not disenchanted. The wise practitioner, it says, rare is the state of existence that does not terrify them. So this is referring to renunciation, and a complete renunciation of all realms of cyclic existence, of not only the hell-hungry ghost and animal, but also the human and God's realms within cyclic existence. So there's a desire to definitely emerge from those. So number 3 is that you become equally disenchanted with the higher realms as you are with the lower realms.
This one.
Digson.
What you thought, then, you then much duba jidua. What the initial cutting do?
The Jetong Delpa, Jetombi Delpa, near the Ratu, that's good. The Jetombi Delpa, Yene Sutri Sung Shime Ratna Guna Sinkaya Gata.
Ale Rana Sana what Tachimando take that the Lashantri.
The Ratna Guna Sinkaya Gata.
You then was a Duba Johnson. Koa Chabi, not then on Tatu Kurus, Koala Chabi, Koala Chaba, and do Tatu Koal Kugres, Marba Tatu Kurur. Yamal Gel Halajin, as soon as you to Kudres, Shetanza. Homala Timba, Tenda Kumara, Homala Timba Lejan, Jeta, Droatela, D. Duche, Jeta, Droatela. The Duche, Mutan Light and Tubaina, the Duche, Tata, the Mumaba, Shinto, Toman Jurusa, me, what the being somebody when you should give a ina, that the mood shake and rojagres, the chakon the mood to Joro Jeta Roa Kunla, Dungen du Shitches, Jeta Roa Kunla, Jeta Roa Kunla, Dungen du Shitches, Roa Dungen du Shitche, Tata, the moon shinto, Summon Joro Jeta Roa Kunla. Dungen dishes that quality brought to Galo and Dungen Ju, Chaban Dungen, what in the San Ludiabaina, Dungen dishes. Teta, Temu Soba Jurusa, Temu the Toby Charter, she is. What the dish at Vienna, Temu Tubu, she is. Jeta Ruakula, Dungen du Shiche, Dungen Ju, Chaban du Dungen Gumbaina, Teta, Temu Shinto, Samun Jorosa, Temu Chechun Chanres, Jeta, Duba Gumba, Shinto, Na Pilasa, Jeta Duba Gumba, Shinto Na Pila, Teta, Decha. Magician Jurus. Jeta Duba Gumba. That didn't have me, they don't let and Idon to Santa Baina. Jeta Duba Suna Idon Marbe. Idon Gumba Shinto Nampila. Teta Decha Magic. What the Duba Q donated Casa. Dundul had me, they don't do so, and then the water Gumba Ina, and the child shades of Changures, the Chag Majete, Chuan Juro, Jeta, Madu Gumba, Shin to pay Judas, then Ku, then I do the Somale, Dungage doing Maduba Gumba, Sitch of Yobaina, the child magician to. And Saji Jurus and Desha Chujun Rendes, Chujun Juro, she Toma Meba, CB Pensula, the ones about Joa Toma Memon Tatipato, C Pensula, the ones in Guaris, the ones in Batan, and Dubi Napa, Dubi Naba Hiduma, Drunduba, Kumbi, Niebos. Gumba teki nyebu kar gumba sana dungen tang muduba gumba she na tada do la sa anna wate kasul decha la do na so wejro maguna temu ta decha pe ne sibi kholo ko somba Sibi Yemi Gumba Net Cho, so what about Sumbatre? Kale each to Chilun, Robert of
Okay. So it says also the verse summary of Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines says, those whose minds are attached to cyclic existence will continue to wander there constantly. And then we have a quote again from Chenrezig's letter to a student. The more you conceive all beings as happy, the more dense the darkness of your delusion becomes. The more you conceive all beings as suffering, the more the darkness of your delusion lessens. The more you contemplate what is pleasant, the more the flames of attachment spread. The more you contemplate what is unpleasant, the more the flames of attachment abate. Here, it's stating those whose minds are attached to cyclic existence will continue to wander there constantly. So being attached to the happy, seemingly happy things within cyclic existence. Then in Chenrezig's letter, it says, the more you conceive all beings as happy, the more dense the darkness of your delusions becomes. So seeing things that are suffering as being happy, and the more that you become attached to this concept, the more your delusion increases. The more you conceive all beings as suffering, the more the darkness of your delusion lessens. So by seeing the reality that all beings are suffering, when we look at the suffering, we see that various types of suffering, the suffering of change, the pervasive compounded suffering. So you then change this idea that all beings are happy into the reality that all beings are suffering. And by doing so, the delusion lessens because you are thinking in a correct way. The more you contemplate what is pleasant, the more the flames of attachment spread. Or the more you contemplate what is attractive, could also be translated as the more the flames of attachment spread. The more you contemplate what is unpleasant, the more the flames of attachment abate. So meditation upon ugliness, Rinpoche said. So where it says unpleasant, ugliness or impurity, as opposed to purity or yeah, that's it. I think I have it all. Diksun.
What about Sumba?
So this is in the third category. So John Sheva states there are three categories. This is in the third.
What
oh, we gave the Lamrim Chenmo, the Sumba, the Pui Kabarka.
Sumba what about the
Kabarka, the Gadu, the Jewa Tomo Meba.
Maguna Temudan, Docha Pene, Kulu Gomba Sumba, Sumbe, Sibi, Yemi Gomba, Net Chos, what about Sumba? Net Chos, Adu.
So from beginningless time you have been conditioned to believe that the wonders of cyclic existence are sources of happiness, and you have habitually projected upon them a false image of beauty. But if, as a remedy, you train yourself to meditate on suffering and unpleasantness, you will put an end to these wrong ideas. Chenrezig says that if you neglect to meditate on these, ignorance and attachment will increase, and you will continue to fuel the process of cyclic existence. Hence, it is virtually important to meditate on the faults of cyclic existence. So here, the stressing on the importance of meditating on things correctly, instead of conceiving beings, as, again at the top, as happy, recognizing the suffering, and so forth. So this is all in category number 3. Now we'll move on. In the Lamrim Chenmo, we find that there are now categories in its own outline. Diksun.
What the judge what the Tomui Lola Chuba Jud Sanjawa the Tomaji Nunis Sajigun what the Tasajigun the Lender Sajigun Tomadal Sundua Mud what the Large Saji Lendua T-shirt Jibundin Tomui Lanjima Lujon La Je Samba Jama Murdan Samba Chibice Tela Lutu Sawa Taba Drivel Lanjiraji Tela Boba what they that Jermachi what the
So now, the faults of cyclic existence, it states, are explained in 3 parts. First, the mental training. The second, the measure of the determination to be free. And then third, the dispelling misconceptions. So that's where we'll begin.
Jibun did the Muyu, larger than Lujan la Je, Samba Samba Chibice, Tela Lutu Sewa, Taba Drive, larger than la Bobas, what the drink is Sajid, what the Jedwa, the Sajin Jedu, Lani Chemukuru, Sajid, the Jitejana, Kuruzo, the Tadere.
That's good.
17 的同意垃圾这把路上把那些300件往我在街边车，在那路途上话，他把这个垃圾这些带了婆婆许多些，哪里去没得多？我可是等一下，那侬可是我大的。
So I'm just looking for the fourth category here. Jipa gare. Hamungu nipatse lutu sewa then jipak.
Jipa tabat jipa larger, jitin la povas. Ulma, ane guden dan laden to let marbe.
So the first category, the mental training. The second category, the measure of the determination to be free. The third category, dispelling misconceptions. And then Rinpoche is saying the fourth category, which is the method, the Jipa Yandrasun, the method for achieving liberation.
Jipa tabat jipa larger, then la povas. Larger chemukuru.
The path you rely upon for achieving liberation is what Rinpoche just said. 4. Let me see. I'm missing something.
다 라리 좀 그런 랜도 디시 제번데 다 통을 라지 좀 발로 좀 와라지 아네 상바정은 대지비체 달라로도 세와 타바드비 라지라지 텔라 보보스 어떤 링이 사지 어디 라리 좀 컨트리아 어떤 가서 어디 거라져다
So we'll be going through the 4 categories, which are the mental training, the measure of the determination to be free, dispelling misconceptions, and the stages of the path leading to liberation. Relying on the stages of the path leading to liberation. Diksha. So we'll be going through these.
So
we'll be going, looking over the medium capacity by way of these 4 points. So we'll be going around the medium scope in this way, with these going around in this way.
Samba jong tang ngan samba mare be ngan samba ko ashe de jera samba ngaban ju ngan samba jong ngan samba jul jibice tela lutu sewas ana wate lutu yang jibu chung da bu ji lutu ol ji ro lutu sewas ta taba de be la jera ji de la ba taba tu ji ge lan den la de dang wu de wo de le mar be. I
remember now. I apologize, everyone. So the mental, there's the mental training, the measure of the determination to be free, dispelling misconception, and ascertaining the nature of the path leading, the stages of the path leading to liberation, is the 4th category, and that section goes over the true paths and true cessations. Go den nan lam den. Okay, ngay rason gonga me bichi.
Rason. Oh, the ta samba jong ngoi saji je wo de ngay wu do samba jong ngoi de ji samba jong ngoi ta ngai ju samba jong ngoi de ji bi se ngai ju samba ju ji bi se kha dong ga zo wen ji de shima de lu ji bi se ji ja so de ji bi se de la lu du se was to ba ji se gu do taba dribe laje raji dena baba guden de lande yong guden de lande don ta taba dribe
then say JP say the kasang atsu jewa shema the gari sumpuregram she.
Chibu chung kadule samba jong samba jibitse kadun dele mazman. Sendele san dan tu san dan na wode chibu chung ju de rego mares. Sendele de shema kadane shema san dan ba ina chibu chung san le jibitse res. Tenaji kwal de wa san dan na de rego maro. Kwal 동해지 동해 주의 동해 차반 주의 동해 어떤 산다마 산으로 지수나 네 근데 삼바 나누 삼바 줄 집체레스 말아
Okay. Decent.
예전부터 타바되냐로 신 쇼나 뜻을 제발라 예전부터 타바되냐로 지수나 안는 나누 삼바 집체레스 라주 말아 야
So, looking at these four categories, the first category is called the mental training. So this is referring to the actual thought, the actual mind, and this is renunciation, the desire to definitely emerge. And then the next category is the measure of the determination to be free. And previously we went over the measure of a small scope practitioner. And we saw that we could measure that by seeing if the emphasis had been changed, if the emphasis on this life was then changed to an emphasis on one's future lives and future goals. So this was the measure according to the small scope when we're looking at the Lamrim Chenmo. So the measure of the medium scope is to see if there is a disenchantment with all of cyclic existence. So previously, so within the small scope, if one is looking at one's goals are about this life or the things of this life, then this isn't the small scope. So if we move to this next level of the medium scope, if there is this desire for the happiness of cyclic existence in any way, then this is a measure. This shows that there isn't this actual thought or the mental training of renunciation present in this person. But if there is this reverse of this thinking, and the person has discussed with the happiness, even the happy things of this life, in the higher realms of cyclic existence, and wishes to get out, then this is the measure of this determination to be free, the measure of the renunciation. And we find a measure of renunciation in the three principal paths by Lama Tsongkhapa, where it says, with day and night, so by constant meditation your mind will not entertain a moment's wish even for the successes of life, and you will aim for freedom all day and night. Then you experience transcendent renunciation. So if all day and night you are desiring to definitely emerge, you are not grasping at the things of this life, the happiness of this life. If day and night you are striving to definitely get out, then you have renunciation. So this is the measure of renunciation, of whether it's present or not. Whether this idea of day and night, without interruption, desiring to be free from cyclic existence. So we find that defined in Lama Tsongkhapa's three principal paths. And then dispelling misconceptions. This is misconceptions related to this medium capacity. And then this last category of the pathway which leads to liberation. This is referring to the superior truth of cessation and the superior truth of path. So this is that fourth category of the identification of the path leading to liberation, or the pathway that leads to liberation. So the pathways leading to liberation, we find the two categories. I know I'm repeating myself. I just want to make sure I went over everything. The two categories there that are presented by Lama Tsongkhapa of the truth of cessation and then the truth of path. speak soon. Okay, so we've gone through what we've gone through today, and then in the future we'll go over it again and again and again. So we've gone through the source of all my good in this way, where we're going to look at it and go over it again, and in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, we'll look at and go over and over again. And I'll also have some time coming up in a couple of weeks. I'll be able to start to translate this outline because I have all the text now. I've been extremely busy, but I'll be able to get the exact headings for the whole outline, so it'll help us when we're building this lexicon around this commentary. So thank you for your patience. Do you have any questions? If you don't, we'll end.
This goes back a few sections to the section on dreams, and I know it's an obscure subject, but is there an emphasis on like black and white objects of a dream, meaning if you subdue black animals, that's necessarily a purification, or if you dream of white foods such as milk and yogurt, that's a purification? Just wondering, I don't know, I had a funny dream about shopping and all the clothes were white, but I didn't know if that was just random or if that kind of, I mean, I'm hoping it was a purification, of course, but could that be another category of all, white things are virtuous and such?
The Lamrim Chenmo, the neighbor Dorje, the Nangla, then Dayan da Ngatsu Dipa da the da gare, Dipa da bi da gare, then the Nilan da gu, then the May Napo, the Pana, then Tona, then the Dipa da bi da, then Kongi Triwa, then the Dendru Napo, the May Napo, the Mingare, the Tuna. Dendru Napo Tuna, the cheaper ribe.
My Manabzo. My bubble Kazao, what a bubble of my
Less so.
My Zin Tosuna.
Tosuna.
And the Tosuro, that word Tolo, and the Inchicalawina,
Subdue.
Okay, Yag Kisuna, Tosla. Then Manabus, the black man.
Black man.
Black man's in the Mosuna, Dibatavataris. Black man, what they debug Nyalayima Diba.
Then Dendru Napo cheaper.
Chiba in Jeruta.
Then the Kongi Chua Nipa, the Nila Nala, the Chala Kanga, the Garpo, Dipi Dapi the Da. Dipa da da. They make the Kanga Garpo, Napo Yomare.
Carbon, then the Tosuna, then near Sidu, Saint Dilhalanduna Dibatavata in Jere.
Less so. Then the Chala Kanga Napo. The
Abutuna could debug das in
Deepa Da. Okay.
Sign
Deepa Da. Okay, so in terms of if when you're having a dream in the Lamrim Chenmo, I'm just going to turn to the exact section just to make it easier. In the Lamrim Chenmo, it talks about subduing an animal and persons. It says with black clothing in the Great Treatise, but it literally in the text says black persons, and it means that not in terms of race, in terms of just the beings, the persons in that dream are black. When we think of that black color, black. So Rinpoche said that if you are subduing a black animal, then this would also be a sign that a purification has taken place. And it speaks of that in here. It talks about, here I am, subduing water buffalo and persons in dark clothing. So we could assume that is a dark animal, so that if you are subduing black animals or dark animals, then it's a sign of purification. And Rinpoche said that if when you wake up and you've had a dream where, for instance, all of the items in the dream are white, and you wake up and you feel good, then this is a sign that a purification has taken place. And I said, what if everything in the dream is black? And he said that that could be a sign of misdeeds, presence of misdeeds. But that's everything. Big soon. So we will in the future go over this again and again. So this one time you won't ascertain it very well, or Rinpoche used the word we, won't ascertain it very well. So we'll go through it again and again. Thank you very much. So we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. And is it the first Wednesday of the month? So the first Wednesday of the month is this Wednesday. So we have a class on the source of all my good, just to remind everybody. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso may stay until samsara's end. Pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Rinpoche, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, a spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts, with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche Kutsi Shapi Denronan, Lamrim Chenmo Kan Shrilanan.